Check out the lead solo I played on my band's new single. So that solo closes Cosmic Spin's new cover version of Time of the Season, originally by Rod Argent and the Zombies. Now, depending on your musical taste, you might think that solo sounds cool, or maybe a little weird. Maybe you get it and like it, or maybe you think it's lousy. And on one hand, I care what you think, and I hope that you and other listeners like the solo, the song, and the whole recording enough to play it more than once, add it to your playlist, and spread it and share it. But on the other hand, as a creative musician, my job is not to care what you think and to simply make music that I love and that moves me. And what I can say with complete confidence is that guitar solo is me, right? It's the personal musical statement I wanted to make in this song at this time. So this solo is a good foil for us to explore a really important topic that you may or may not think about, taking musical risks. This is actually a big deal because your attitude about taking risks is ultimately a huge factor in your journey as a guitarist, singer, keyboard player, whatever else you play. I mean, risk-taking affects how quickly you progress as a musician, how you feel about your own music, and ultimately how other people feel and react too. Stick with me, because we're going to make you a better, more courageous musician by getting into some risky business. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Robert Cassard. Glad you're here because I am celebrating a big milestone today, 10,000 subscribers. I hope you're one of them, and I hope you'll like this video, leave a comment, spread your love of music by sharing these videos with your friends and family. I mean, it really means a lot to me. Love spreading the music. All right, we're exploring the importance of taking musical risks. So there's a Zen saying, leap and the net will appear. Now, what that means to me is that taking a risk, in this case, a musical leap, will be rewarded in unexpected ways. Usually ways that prevent you from getting hurt, like a net. Now, when you think about it, the process of learning to sing or play an instrument is focused on not making mistakes. For quite a while, usually the first few years of practice, the main goal is to play songs or pieces all the way through without missing a note or a beat. And I don't argue with that. You have to be able to get through a piece of music without huge blunders or interruptions before you can start leaping and taking musical risks. But here's the thing. Way too many musicians get stuck in perfection mode, right? Playing and singing perfectly is an accomplishment and people admire it, but perfect music gets boring pretty fast. Like too much auto-tune. And for me, musical perfection is the source of most mediocre and stagnant music making. But back in high school, I was in a band that played a lot of weddings, bar mitzvahs, and corporate parties. And we were kind of known for being able to play note-for-note clones of popular hits. So back then, playing covers accurately served a purpose. Getting gigs, right? But it never felt like my calling. And, in hindsight, I realized that was imitative, not creative. To be musically creative, you got to do your own thing. You got to play and sing with your own voice and your own style. You basically have to take risks. So, as soon as possible in your musical development, I want you to give yourself permission to let go of perfection. Even trying to sing and play every note perfectly. Instead, I want you to start consciously injecting your emotion and your passion into your music. What we want to do is get you off autopilot and make sure you're present and mindful of the meaning of the music you're playing, and especially what it means to you. That's how you're going to become a great musician that really affects your audience, even if the audience is only you. So there are two quotes I love that I have posted on my guitardiscoveries.com website. One is from Beethoven. To play a wrong note is insignificant. To play without passion is inexcusable. There's a guy from 200 years ago saying what a lot of musicians today either forget or don't understand. Okay, the second quote is from Miles Davis, the great jazz trumpet player. When you play a wrong note, play it again. Between Beethoven and Miles, you've just gotten all the advice you need about taking musical risks. Like Beethoven says, you need to sing and play with passion. And like Miles says, you make a mistake, play it again and make it intentional. So my own path as a musician was very eclectic. A lot of time in choirs, small vocal groups, stage musicals. I played double bass in symphonies. I played guitar and sang in rock bands. I spent years as a solo singer-songwriter. And somewhere in that crazy mix of music, I fell in love with jazz around my sophomore year of high school. I literally couldn't get enough of it. I listened to every style and I just got fascinated. I dissected it. I got into the history. I worked hard to develop my own jazz chops. I generally just kind of basked in it. And I had a brilliant piano playing friend, Todd Norian, and he caught the jazz bug too. And we started a jazz trio along with a very talented drummer named Jim Clements. And, just a quick aside, Todd Norian is today best known as a yoga master, but he still makes beautiful meditative music. You should look him up. Okay, so I played upright bass and sometimes jazz guitar. And it was playing and listening to all that jazz that taught me the value of risk-taking and passion over perfection. So if you look at the early history of jazz, it was mostly happy sounding, ragtime, Dixieland, swing. It had a good beat and you could dance to it, right? But there was this turning point that happened in the 20 years or so following World War II. So it's late 40s, early 50s. The beat poets and cool jazz come along, and it really allowed things to relax and be cool. So the pure joy of earlier jazz and that relative safety and predictability of all those well-planned arrangements, that were always ear-pleasing, started really giving way to something a lot more daring. Certain artists were, just determined to venture outside of standard keys and tempos. They were really searching for something different, freer, maybe even more spiritual. So they used to say way out, right? And that applied musically, like venturing way outside the key of a song, like maybe playing a whole tone scale, or way out from standard rhythmic structure, playing 4/3, stuff like that. So a lot of the post-bebop, modern jazz, free jazz, jazz fusion, all of that just blew away the conventions of jazz improvisation. And in fact, I think that new jazz intentionally didn't appeal to every ear, right? So you have guys like Monk and Pharoah Sanders and John Coltrane, Ornette Coleman, Cecil Taylor. These guys broke every rule in every way they could think of. So my first exposure to this kind of, way outness was in rock, and it was when the Byrds recorded 8 Miles High. Roger McGuinn playing that awesome 12-string Rickenbacker, and his part just sounded so different. He says it was influenced by Coltrane and Ravi Shankar, so there's an East Indian influence too. So I was 5 years old when 8 Miles High came out, but I loved that wild sound. And then there was Miles Davis. He moved beyond his own virtuosity because he'd proven he was a master of the trumpet during the bebop era. And, he could play fast, melodic solos over really complex chord changes, no problem. And then something changed, I think he actually got bored with playing to impress. He started to love space in the music as much as the notes themselves, right? He loved the unexpected more than the expected. And he started playing lead lines with his trumpet plugged into guitar effects, and that sound was so far out, a lot of people just considered it noise. I mean, Bitches Brew challenged everyone. Where was Miles coming from? Here's another quote. Do not fear mistakes. there are none. I love that. Talk about freeing you up to play anything. Once you know the rules and can follow them, it's time to start breaking them. And that brings me back to my lead guitar solo on Time of the Season. The whole song is only 3 minutes long, and while we were recording it, I did a lot of layering, what I call texturizing. I sometimes call it guitarchestration, just to keep it interesting, right? And it starts off the way you'd expect. Guitar, bass, drums. Straight rock band. All right, then right away, instruments drop out and leave open space.
It's the time of the season when love runs high. In this time,
each of the vocal choruses are like walls of sound.
Show you everyone, it's the time of the season for loving.
And there are a couple of breakdowns to add texture, like when the mellotron flutes take over. There's also a half verse where it's just vocals and tambourine.
it's the time of the season
When the love runs high.
in this time. Give it to me easy.
Now, something I love about Time of the Season is the way it hangs in the key of E minor during each verse and most of each chorus until the last two words, for loving, when it magically switches to E major. It's kind of like the sun comes out at the end of each chorus.
Season for loving.
But then it keeps diving back into E minor. So when I got to the song's outro, I knew it wanted a guitar solo. And, I asked myself, where should this go? Now, one answer would be to stay in E major after that final chorus, maybe do a soft romantic lead solo, kind of like a happy ending. That just didn't feel right to me. The song is about love, but I wanted it to be intense, passionate love. And I really wanted to pay off the rock drive of the song. So for me, that meant going back to E minor, like on the verses. And I kind of wanted everything to just be jamming, take the song out on the freeway of love, at high speed. And actually, a better analogy would be tantric kundalini energy. I wanted that serpent power, the snake that climbs up the spine through all the chakras all the way up to the crown. So I wanted the solo to be sinuous and powerful. So that is why I pulled out my Gibson 68 SG Special, complete with the horns and the edgy P90 pickups. And I routed it through a slightly bombastic Logic Pro patch called Arena Ready. Tweaked a few parameters and just started to improvise. Fair warning, I'm not a shredder. I'm not a guy who spent my whole life mastering scales. I'm really a rhythm guitarist. But I know what I like. And these days, I've got no pride, right? I'm willing to fall flat on my face as many times as I need to capture what I hear in my head. So here's what I did. I set up a loop in Logic and I let that solo section just play the loop about 10 times while I just messed around. And I got a feel for, what might be right with the solo. And during those 10 passes, I came up with two clear ideas of what I wanted to do. Number one, I wanted to start with a couple of sweep picking phrases and note bends. So I'd open the solo with this feeling of kind of reaching or longing for something. And then number two, I knew I wanted to take risks during the solo, right? I wanted it to be unpredictable, a little bit freeform, definitely to take a cosmic spin outside of the key, at least on the way to the final resolution. So I had that rough structure in mind. And then I hit the record button. It definitely took me a few attempts, and I had to consciously remind myself to keep taking risks and try and unleash the snake. I want to let you in on that process, just warts and all, because part of taking risks is making mistakes, right? Plenty of them. All right, so here you go. Take one.
Time for loving.
yikes. I mean, you can hear a lot of uncertainty in that take. There's a lot of trying to find something and pretty much failing, right? I did like when it went down low and then came back up. And I really liked the octaves at the very end. So those two tidbits informed sort of a new set of risks in take two. Is that better? I mean, maybe a little. There's still a lot of aimless searching in the middle section. I liked the dissonant series of chords in the last two bars, so I kind of added that to my mental list of cool things I could do. All right, take three. Finally feel myself getting a little closer. I even got a little lost in that take, lost enough that I missed the final cue. So that at least means I was in the risk zone and that's where I needed to be. Take four. Feeling it. Interesting. I kind of liked it. I love how the power chords add muscle to the solo, so I made note of that. And then that little moment when I went up high and bent the note and hit the major third up an octave, that's kind of a cool nod back to the key of E major, so I think I want to keep that. What I didn't like was having all those chaotic chords near the end. It just felt like too much. Okay, so now it's take five. Take five. I wonder if the spirit of Dave Brubeck is in the room. For me, that was it. Of course, I could keep going, but I just knew that take was in the sweet spot between planned and improvised. It was exactly what I wanted to say and hear with that solo. There was more fire in my playing. I'd definitely taken more risks, and the risks paid off, at least to my ear and what I was going for. I'd love to know what you think. Do you like the risky sound instead of something more within the key? Now, I want to make it clear, taking risks isn't just about your solos, right? Anytime you interpret any piece of music, I hope you'll be conscious of taking chances that are personal to you, right? You might try a different tempo or rhythmic feel. You might alter the melody. You could change the arrangement or the structure of the song. You could play more softly, more aggressively. I mean, whatever feels right for the song in the moment and that brings your uniqueness to it. Because ideally, every performance will be you giving your all and something no one else could do or would do in quite the same way. So in other words, I hope you'll stop playing it safe, right? The way you can share your unique musical gifts is by pushing yourself to do things differently and to always take risks. All right, please leave a comment and share what risk-taking means to you and your music. And check out Cosmic Spin's new version of the Zombies' Time of the Season. Single's coming out on July 23rd, 2021 on all your favorite streaming services. You can visit guitardiscoveries.com. You'll get those links and also find 100 other videos full of guitar, vocal, and recording inspiration. So see you next time. Keep taking risks. As Herbie Hancock said, I think risk-taking is a great adventure, and life should be full of adventures.
It's the time of